Are you feeling stuck financially, living paycheck to paycheck, or watching your money disappear right before your eyes? You may be sabotaging your own financial future without even realizing it. In today's episode, we are exposing 12 everyday habits that could be keeping you broke, and more importantly, how you can fix them. These are habits that nobody really talks about, but they make all the difference between staying stuck and building wealth. If you're ready to take control of your money and transform your financial life, this is the episode you've been waiting for. So let's dive in and start making real change today. Let's go.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror. Where future success is reflected in our knowledge of fixing the one thing we can control, ourselves.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror, and thanks for joining me today as we continue to work to improve the one thing that we can control, ourselves. Here at the Financial Mirror, it is not about the numbers and spreadsheets alone, but about transforming and educating you on money so that you can make smarter financial decisions. If this is the first time you are joining in, don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube to be notified of all the new episodes as they release. If you are listening to this on Rumble, don't forget to follow the channel and like the video. And if you are listening on any podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. So today we are talking about something that is super crucial to, if you want to change your financial future, this is about as important as it gets. And the reason that I say that is because it's very, very easy for people, and I hear it a lot, is people are pointing fingers and blaming others for why they're not where they want to be financially. And I'm not saying that they want to aspire to be the next Elon Musk, but that they are suffering with debt, that they are living paycheck to paycheck, that they are not exactly where they can't buy a home, like all these things. And the truth is that it's the motto that the Financial Mirror is built on, is that financial freedom, financial success, financial, whatever you want to talk about, it starts with you. It all starts with you working to improve the one thing we can control, ourselves. Can't control everyone else, but what we can control is ourselves. So financial success starts with you, and it's time to be real about that. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's time to be real that there are habits in your life currently that are keeping you broke, and most of them, not all, but most of them are completely within your control. Like, you could flip a switch and change it. Now, I'm not saying it'd be easy, but you could flip a switch and change it. Like, it's like an on-off type of thing. And if it's any of these that I go over today, if any of these are currently not being done in your life, it's time to stop making excuses and start making real change. Because if you will implement these 12 habits that I'm going to talk about today, you will start to break through and find a little bit of footing for your finances. I'm telling you, if you stick with me throughout this episode, I guarantee you will walk away with some practical steps you can take to transform your financial future. Now, I've got 12 habits today that we're going to go over. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each because a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. But what I wanted to do today is kind of just highlight what the 12 habits are that we want to ingrain into our normal day-to-day life. Like, these are not things that are hard to do. Like I said, a lot of them are like light switches. You flip them on and they come on, or you ignore them and they stay where they're at. But what I want to talk about today is those 12 habits. And I want to give you tips on how you can change something, give you some actionable items that you can walk away with and go out and flip that switch. Go out and actually start to implement these into your life. All right. So I'm not going to spend not deep dive in all 12 of these. Like, these are full episodes by themselves. I could literally do a whole 12 habit series about these things. And if I dug around in episodes, I probably have already done an episode on almost all of these. So the idea here is that I highlight it, I bring it back to the forefront of your mind and say, you just say yes or no. Am I doing it or am I not doing it? Right? In the comment section, throw in what is the hardest habit at the end of this? What is the hardest habit that you are struggling with? Maybe even throw in there now, what is that one thing that you want to improve on? that you've struggled with for so long, and maybe we may just hit the habit that highlights that. So the first habit that I want to talk about is you don't have a budget. The first habit is keeping people broke is they don't have a budget. And I mean, how can you possibly know where your money's going if you don't track it? A budget is not restrictive at all. Like, many people will say, well, I don't budget because it's restricting. It's not. It's liberating. Like, it allows you to tell your money where you want it to go. Like, if you think that you've got to cut down on your Amazon shopping because you got on a budget, you're budgeting wrong. Like, just make a category called Amazon and put money in it, right? Like, it is liberating. The idea, though, is people say that it's restricting. However, what they really mean is that they have to track it. It's work. It does take a little bit of effort, right? So, but what it does do is it gives you a clear picture of your income, your spending, and your savings. And without it, you're literally flying blind. It's like I tell you, hey, drive to Washington, and I'm not going to give you a map. I'm not going to give you directions, but you've never been there. You have no idea where to go. Could you find your way? Sure. There's a good chance you may be able to use some signs and find your way, but you're literally flying blind. Like, you have no idea where you're going. You're just going to kind of figure it out as you go, right? That's what operating without a budget is like. And you can kind of see this because 27% of Americans don't think they need a budget, right? And it's interesting because when you look at the reasons that they don't think they need a budget, they don't think it's necessary. 27% don't think it's necessary to have a budget. They don't think they'll stick to it. So they've kind of already preemptively set themselves up for failure by saying, well, I don't budget because I won't stick to it. Like, you've already failed. Like, you instantly failed by having that comment. They don't feel like making one. Well, that's just laziness, right? Like, 10% just are lazy, right? And finances are tough if you're going to be lazy about it. Like, it does take some effort. They don't want to feel restricted by a budget. 15%, there it is, right? They don't know how to get started. Now that is a crucial one. And I've got episodes about budgeting. Go pull one of those up and just see that setting a budget is not super hard. I've got an episode on a 50-30-20 budget that I'll put a link to, but that is a great place to start if you think through how, just an easy way to get started. And 12% are kind of in that scared category. They don't really know. They don't want to check their bank account because they're spending on things that they don't really want to go back and look at, right? But tons of people talk about this, and budgets are very much an enabler of finance. If you're not budgeting, you are most definitely in the ballpark of not really being on track with finances. Like, that is step one. So think about it. If you don't have a budget, you don't know how much you're earning, you don't know how much you're spending, you don't know how much you're saving, and you may just be spending more than you think. So I'm telling you, a budget helps you take control. If you will do if you're not doing this is an absolute mandate for personal finance. Like, if you don't budget and stick to the budget, and you blame anything else for your financial woes, I am sad to tell you, but this is a personal responsibility. Like, if you're not budgeting and you're living paycheck to paycheck, I can point my finger at why you're living paycheck to paycheck, right? Because the budget's going to highlight where you're overspending. The budget's going to highlight where you are, where you can make some changes to not live paycheck to paycheck. But if you're not budgeting, you are going to continue to have struggles with your finances. So a couple things you can do to get started with budgeting. Like I said, I'll put a link to the 50-30-20 budget. I've also done a episode recently on top budgeting apps. I did a review. I tried out a bunch of different budgeting apps personally, just to test them and see, kind of like give you a guide on what budgeting apps are great out there. So I'll put a little link to that as well to give you some places to start. Some of them are free, some of them are low cost, some of them are a little bit more hefty that we talk about. But biggest thing is pick a budgeting app that works for you and apply it. So that's number one. That's the first one. I did spend a little bit more time on that one than I will on others because that is the most important. I can't stress it enough. The most important. You got to have a budget. Number two is you're not aware of spending habits. If you're not aware of spending habits, this could be what's sabotaging your financial progress. Overspending, it happens, and then we don't realize it, and all of a sudden money's just leaving, and you look back at your bank account and you're like, oh my goodness, where did my money go? Huge problem that would cause. Now, what can you do about it is very important, right? Very important for what you can do about it. And the biggest thing is that when I was kind of researching this one is seeing that many people actually are that operate on a budget still overspend. And it's shocking. It's shocking that so many people operate on a budget. 84% of Americans with a monthly budget say they sometimes exceed their budget. Now, that's only a sometimes, right? But when they overspend, they put it on credit cards. If they overspend 2 days in a row or 2 months in a row, you now have a revolving balance, right? You're going to carry over that previous balance because if you overspend again, you're putting more money on the credit card and you cannot pay off the previous month's credit card, right? So you run into this cycle. And I'm telling you, it is not where you want to be. But if you're living on a budget, yet you are still overspending, you're not really living on a budget. So, and I get clients that'll say that. They'll say, well, I have a budget, but I don't stick to it. Well, you're kind of wasting the effort then. Like if you're not going to live on the budget that you're creating, like don't create the budget, right? Like what's the budget doing if it's just a task? It feels worthless. You've got to build the budget and then you got to live on the budget, right? It's kind of two steps there. But once you start to get a grasp of where you're spending and you get that spending awareness, it will really open your eyes to where you can cut, because like spending without awareness is like trying to lose weight without knowing how much you're eating, right? You need to track it somewhere to see where you can make adjustments. And that's where it becomes liberating, because you can look at this and say, well, man, like I didn't realize I was spending that much in that category. And I don't even that's not even an important category to me. Now you can start to make changes there. So I encourage you, don't just make a budget, live on the budget, right? Like look at the budget, monitor the budget. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's painful because, you've got to tell yourself, hey, like I can't spend any more money. I'm out of money, right? It stinks. I'm telling you, it stinks. But once you become more aware of how you're spending, the next step is to ask yourself, are you spending on things that you really need? And that's kind of that next part. That next habit is you got the budget. You're going through and you're making sure that you're tracking and updating and being aware of where you're spending. And that next step is, are you spending it on things that you really need? And that takes us into habit 3. You're spending too much on stuff you don't need. We've all been there. You buy something you don't need. A month later, it's sitting in the back of the closet. You go to a souvenir shop, that $20 souvenir or impulse buy might not seem like a big deal at the time, but they start to add up and you're like, man, where is all my money going? And then you start to look around, you're like, I've got a bunch of junk, right? The truth is you could have been using that money for something that would actually improve your financial situation, like paying off debt or investing, all of those things. The one that I am seeing a ton is Amazon. I am seeing a ton of people wasting money on Amazon. This is a little article I found. 5 ways your Amazon spending impacts your finances and 5 ways you can save. This top one I think is the biggest one that I see more times than not is people shopping out of boredom. They're just bored. So they open up an Amazon app and they start to scroll, and Amazon's smart. They got marketing teams galore, geniuses. And they're putting things right in your face that they're like, I think you might want this. And then you're like, you're right, Amazon, I do want that. That is such an amazing product. I want that so bad. That's one way. And kind of go through this. Like it's easier to buy things. Auto deliveries, the subscription stuff, like all that stuff. Super easy to do. And I kind of broke it down to 3 ways. Amazon is impacting finances. Boredom spending is you're bored, so you buy. Solution spending, you run into an inconvenience, so you find a solution on Amazon that you buy to try to never go through that inconvenience again. And want spending, you just want something, so you go and you buy it, right? But boredom, solution, and want spending is what is making Amazon a killing, right? It's what is making Amazon a killing. I'm telling you, if you will start to control making sure that you actually need something, it will improve your finances. The impact of these small, while like seemingly, benign purchases over time, those add up. So I suggest you, like, one little tip you can do for this is just apply that 30-day rule. If you want something, wait 30 days, see if you still need it or want it, then buy it. I did an episode a few weeks back about spending triggers and how they can contribute to leaving you broke. I'll put a link to that episode, but just talks about how there's certain things in your life, like boredom, for instance, that you may get bored and you have a tendency to open Amazon and purchase. But it could not be Amazon. Amazon is, the scapegoat here, but it could be anything that makes you spend money. Like, I'm bored, so I go to a restaurant, or I go sit down in a bar, or I go like whatever, and you just spend money, right? Because, thinking about things like we buy things we don't need, and sometimes we hang on to things as well, right? Like, we'll buy something we don't need, and then all of a sudden we see it, we know we don't need it, even like 15 days in, and we haven't used it at all. We could return it, right? But we hang on to these things, and it makes us feel like everything is good, that life is great. But there's also a way where holding on to too much stuff can kind of hurt your finances. And that takes us into number 4 is you're holding on to things that give you a false sense of wealth. Owning a lot of things does not necessarily like increase wealth at all. Like, some things, maybe having extra cars, electronics, or a garage full of toys may feel like this illusion of wealth, right? A lot of people, whenever they start getting those first few years of higher earnings, you'll start to see them to buy a lot of new gadgets and toys. And it starts to make them feel wealthier, right? Even though the things they're buying are depreciating in value. True wealth is in those non-tangible things like investments and savings and assets that are growing over time. That's where the appreciation of assets really happens. Like, everything else that makes people feel or look wealthy are depreciating assets. It's counterintuitive. I know the brain is just like all over the place. Like, what? You mean a brand new 4-wheeler, a brand new side-by-side is not increasing my wealth? No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So I suggest like some decluttering, selling some items that you're not using any longer, and use that extra cash to kind of start to pay off debt, to start to think about using that for your long-term financial growth. It's a great way to sell off some things, accumulate some money, like yard sale type sell off things, Facebook Marketplace, all these great places to go and sell things. Take that lump sum of money, let it go straight to your debt. That's going to lower your payments, and that's going to free up more cash. And now you're not going to feel like you're as tight month to month, because your minimum payments plus your extra was at like, your minimum payment was like at like $400, and now it's at $150. So now you have a little extra that you can pay on top of that debt and pay it down faster. So holding on to stuff, it can kind of give us this false sense of wealth, but it's truly a trap. It's a depreciating trap that many people get drawn into. So sometimes trying to save money by buying cheap can actually cost us more, right? And that's what I kind of wanted to talk to next is how like we start to, because we're buying all these like cool things, we have less money to go around. So we have to start buying cheap things because that's all we can afford. And in the long run, it could cost us more money. So another habit that you could think about is to buy quality instead of cheap. Sounds crazy, right? We've all been guilty of it, including myself. We buy the cheapest option to save some money, right? Because we needed it to buy the side-by-side. We needed the extra money to go buy this other thing, so we bought a cheaper option to save money. Now, what often happens with cheap products is they break and they wear out quickly, and we end up replacing them like every 6 months. And over time, you're going to spend more money than had you just invested in the quality from the beginning. So just one little thing a little habit that you can do is ask yourself, like, is $20 more going to make this thing last for an extra 2 or 3 years? And if the answer is yes, spend the $20, right? Like don't go cheap on something that is you're going to need this. If it's a one-time use thing, like it's that one tool that has one purpose and you need it right now. And if it broke or it rusted or you lost it and 5 years from now you need it again and you could just go buy it again, I would just go cheap, right? I would go cheap. Like I'm never going to need this again, possibly. And if I do, I'll just buy it again because I don't know when that time comes. Maybe this time it's okay to go cheap on that. But for things that you're going to need consistently once a month, once every 2 months, and you need it to stay in good shape, buy quality. Don't run this risk of every few months having to buy this new thing for the simple fact that you just are choosing to buy the cheapest option every time, right? So just another little habit that you can get into is just ask yourself, like, what if I have to replace this every 6 months? Would it be better to buy the quality and let it last 2 years? Sure, absolutely it would. So think through that, just another habit that you can form. Once you start focusing on that, a sixth habit that we really want to start to develop is building wealth into your into long-term goals, right? Thinking about wealth in terms of having long-term goals, because if you don't have a roadmap, if you don't have milestones, if you don't have things that you're working towards, you are drifting aimlessly. You have no idea where you're headed. You don't know why you're going there. Like, why even get out of debt? If you don't have long-term financial goals, like, why even get out of debt? Like, just let your goal be to be in debt the rest of your life, right? Like, there is no incentive to get out of debt. Like, there is not, right? Like, what do you want to do next? When debt's paid off, then what? And if it doesn't feel better, if it doesn't make you feel motivated, then you're never going to get out of debt. You need something that's on the other end of that debt. You need something that's on the other end of where you're at right now that's going to motivate you to want to get through the struggle, right? There's got to be something on the other end. And that means having a long-term financial goal. It's one thing to say, I want to retire someday, but how? You've got to be more specific. Actionable goals that guide your financial decisions today. And I saw a little picture yesterday that talked about how your student debt at 40 started at 18, right? Like your retirement problems at 59 and a half started at age 25, 20, right? Like the problems of tomorrow are being created by the decisions today. But you've got to have a financial goal. You've got to have a long-term goal. You've got to. If you don't care about tomorrow financially, then don't complain. Don't blame anybody. Just enjoy being in debt, right? Like if you are not planning for tomorrow, if you're not planning a financial future, if you're not actually coming up with financial goals, just be happy with where you're at. Be happy in debt. Be happy with living paycheck to paycheck. Don't grumble and complain if you're not making the steps needed. I'm telling you, this is personal responsibility. This whole thing is habits you can flip on today. Habits you can start building today. And that's number 6 is setting those clear goals. It gives you a reason to save. It gives you a reason to invest. And that brings us to the next habit. Are you putting your extra money to work? If you're not investing your extra money once you're out of debt, you're really losing that compound interest effect for your money. It allows your money to grow. Even small amounts can snowball into significant gains through compound interest, right? There are tons of investing brokers out there. It's become so easy to invest nowadays. It really has. Like it's not hard. They make it so easy to invest. Like before, paying commissions on buying stock. Like back in the day, it was like $6.95 just to buy a stock and $6.95 to sell a stock. And man, it is so easy today. And if you're not doing it, my goodness, we're missing out. So I've added a link in the description of this episode to a great great, easy to use broker that you can get started investing. Click that link, sign up for your account, fund your account, and you even get free stock shares just for signing up, funding, and getting started. But I'm telling you, an easy way is to simply invest in the S&P 500, invest in total market investments, and watch your money grow over time. It's not going to grow every year. Some years are going to be down years, right? But just investing in total market is a great way to let your money grow over time, right? So now we talked about investing, and I'm going to start trying to work through these so we can kind of keep this episode under 30 minutes. But we talked about investing your extra money. One of the biggest financial traps is credit card balances. Look, credit card debt is one of the biggest financial burdens that people have, right next to student loan debt. Credit cards I consider to be a little worse for the simple fact that they are high interest rates, normally running around 25%. Carrying a monthly balance will throw your money into interest payments wastefully, right? So if you can, pay off those balances in full every month if you're using a credit card. If not, get those things paid down. One way you can do it is a debt snowball. I did link to this, but pretty much a debt snowball, kind of goes through the 5 steps. List your debt smallest to largest, make minimum payments on all the debts except for your smallest, throw extra money you can at your smallest debt, and then start to let that compound and build. But I put this link to this Dave Ramsey article about debt snowball, and great read if you are curious on how to get out of debt in one of the most effective ways that I think is possible. So talk through that, but having a plan to pay off your debt is crucial. And the debt snowball is a great plan for you to get started on doing that. But what about the next plan, right? Like your debt's paid off. Now what? Next plan is plan for the future, right? And that takes us to habit 9. You got to have a financial plan. If you don't have a financial plan, you've got to start thinking through that because it goes beyond the budget. We talked about a few different things kind of leading up to this point where we talked about the budget. We talked about spending awareness. We talked about long-term goals. All of those things drive towards your financial plan, right? This is thinking 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Without it, you're just reacting to finances. You've got to start to take control. Sure, there's going to be setbacks, but this ties all of everything together, right? Your budget and your spending awareness all ties into your long-term goals, medium-term goals, short-term goals for finances. This financial plan takes it one step further. It starts to bring all those goals together, align your goals. You're going to have an investing goal. You're going to have a savings goal. You're going to have a retirement goal. You're going to have all of these things. Maybe there's a goal that you have you've always wanted a trip to Australia or something. Like there's another little savings goal. All these things ties everything together and creates a long-term vision. That vision is your financial plan. So you've got to have a financial plan. It's great for making sure that you are confident in your money and knowing where it's going and that you're securing your financial future. And that takes us to number 10. You've got to feel confident about talking about money. I encourage you, tune into the Financial Mirror, continue to open your mind and learn about money. Just listening to these episodes is just that first start that will help you start to think about things from your own life lessons, apply it to your own life lessons, and create a vision for your money. But talking about money can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, mostly because they just don't understand it. But avoiding the conversation is not going to help you learn it, right? You've got to get engaged. So I encourage you, take small steps. Knowledge builds confidence. So just listening to the Financial Mirror is one great way to do that, but listening to other people as well. Audiobooks, podcasts about finance is a great way to start to think through and feel confident in money. Takes me into the next habit, 11. You think negatively about money. Money, you think money's evil or you'll never have enough. You kind of put yourself in that negative mindset. Money's just a tool. It's neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. How you use it matters. So start to think through and get out of that scarcity mindset. Start to focus on opportunities that'll help you kind of reframe your view of money. And that really helps drive. One of those things you should start to think through is like, how can I just be a better steward of what I've got, the money I do have, and be able to not think like, oh, I'll never have enough, I'll never get out of the situation, yada, yada, yada. Just start to think through money differently. And that last habit that we want to change is how you value your time is just as important as how you value your money. So that 12th habit is you just don't value your time. If you are doing things that are not really bringing value to your life, first off, I'm not going to say that it needs to make you money, but if you're doing things that are just wasting time, there are opportunities out there you could be taking to take that same amount of time and put it into this other opportunity that could make you money. Could teach you a lesson that'll help you make money in the future. But I encourage you, focus on activities that bring long-term returns, not just making money long-term returns, but learning new skills, investing in education, starting little side businesses. All of those things are great ways that you can start to make your time valuable. So there you have it. 12 habits that might just be keeping you broke. If you're not happy with your finances currently, take a look at those habits. Which ones are you guilty of? Because the good news is you can change them. Your financial future is in your hands, not anyone else's. It's in your hands. So remember, don't blame others for your circumstances until you've knocked out those 12. And I guarantee if you are doing all 12 of those things, you will be confident in yourself, you'll be confident in your money, and you'll be confident in your future. So I encourage you. Go out, make those changes, and start living a life that's going to lead you to where you want to be financially. So hopefully you got something out of this episode. If you do need a little extra dose of support for your financial journey, head over to thefinancialmirror.org and hit book now in the middle of the screen and schedule a free consultation with me. We'll sit down and see if a financial coach is right for you. I said I kind of hit that 30-minute mark, but I did want to make sure that I hit all those points. Thank you for tuning in. If you like the video, don't forget to like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Just continue to show support for Financial Mirror. Always great to see the comment sections and what people are saying, giving different perceptions, different views, different opinions. Always great to see. So thank you. Look forward to next week. Until then, continue improving the one thing you can control, yourself. Peace.
Well, that wraps up today's Financial Mirror. Join us next week as we continue to work on ourselves, change our mentality, and to commit to achieving the success we always envisioned. Regardless of your platform, help us grow as a community. Please like, subscribe, and share with the people in your lives.